So, have you been trying to figure out what's really going on with India's cooking gas supply? Because, on one hand, you hear these official statements saying everything's fine, everything's stable. But then you see all these reports of long lines, businesses struggling. It's all pretty confusing, right? Okay, let's dive in and try to piece this whole LPG supply puzzle together.
And that really brings us to the big question, the one at the heart of all this. Is India actually facing an LPG shortage? It seems like it should be a simple yes or no question, but believe me, the answers we're getting are anything but simple.
And this, right here, is the core of the problem. You've got the official statements saying, look, supply is stable, distributors have stock, no problem. But then you look at the on-the-ground reports, and it's a totally different story. We're talking long queues, protests, businesses that can't get the gas they need to operate. That's the tension we're going to unpack.
So let's start with what people are actually seeing and feeling across the country. How are all these reported disruptions really impacting daily life, and what's it doing to businesses?
It's pretty wild how far-reaching the effects are. Even the iconic big fat Punjabi wedding isn't safe. With thousands of weddings on the calendar, caterers are scrambling to get commercial gas cylinders. It's forcing them to actually scale back those huge lavish food spreads. We're talking fewer tandoor dishes, fewer fried items, all because they just can't get enough gas.
And this quote just perfectly illustrates the kind of tough choices businesses are making. Down south, an association for hostels and paying guest accommodations in Tamil Nadu had to send this out. They're cutting tea, coffee, even dosas just to conserve gas. Instead of sambar, they're serving chutney. These aren't small adjustments. This completely changes what they can offer.
Meanwhile, the situation is really hitting a boiling point in the capital region. Those small food vendors and dabas, the absolute lifeblood of street food culture, they're being forced to close up shop, at least temporarily. And the frustration has literally spilled onto the streets, with residents in places like Noida blocking main roads to protest the fact they can't get cylinders. And, of course, whenever supply gets tight, a black market starts to boom. And this is where the economic impact really hits home. A commercial cylinder that should cost about 1,000 rupees is reportedly being sold for as much as 3,000 in some areas. For a small street food vendor, that's just an impossible price to pay. Okay, so we've seen the view from the ground. Now let's flip the coin and look at the other side of this story. What is the government's official response to all these reports? Well, they're really pushing a message of stability and talking about their strategic measures.
So the official line is firm. There is no nationwide crisis. Sources are insisting that the supply is totally adequate to meet demand, and critically, that their number one priority is making sure domestic households get their gas without any interruption. They also say they have systems in place to stop black marketing.
And to back all this up, they've laid out a pretty clear three-pronged strategy. First, refineries have been told to boost production by about 10%. Second, a special fuel supply management program is now active, ready to handle any potential crisis. And third, they're working hard to diversify where India gets its energy from in the first place.
And you can see that third point visualized perfectly right here. To rely less on the volatile Middle East, India has been sourcing more of its oil and gas from regions outside the Strait of Hormuz. That share has already jumped from 60 to 70%. It's a really clear strategic shift, all about ensuring a more stable supply chain for the long haul.
Now, whenever you get this kind of a disconnect between what the officials are saying and what people are experiencing, you get these secondary effects, right? So let's take a look at how rumors, hoarding, and the law are all starting to play a major role.
One of the most fascinating ways to gauge public sentiment is just to look at what people are buying. In the Delhi-NCR region, retailers are reporting this massive surge in sales of induction cooktops. It's not that people are giving up on LPG, but they're buying these as a precaution, a backup plan, just in case.
And the authorities are sending a very strong message about hoarding. Basically, under the Essential Commodities Act, illegally stockpiling cylinders is a really serious offense. They can seize all the goods, and if you're caught, you could be facing not just fines, but serious jail time, anywhere from 3 months all the way up to 7 years.
And where you have scarcity and high prices, crime almost always follows. And we're not talking about petty theft here. Get this, in a pretty dramatic case in Jhansi, police busted a theft ring and recovered a staggering 524 stolen LPG cylinders. A single raid. That just underscores how valuable and how vulnerable these cylinders have become on the black market.
And to try and control the narrative and stop any panic from spreading, state authorities are cracking down. The Assam police, for example, have put out explicit warnings saying anyone caught spreading rumors about fuel shortages is going to face strict legal action.
They're urging the public to only rely on official information.
Of course, it's no surprise that an issue that affects so many people so directly has exploded into a major national political debate.
And you can see the two sides clashing right here. On one side, you've got the opposition, with figures like Rahul Gandhi accusing the Prime Minister of panicking while the party organizes protests. And on the other side, Prime Minister Modi has reportedly told his ministers to respond aggressively to what they're calling opposition propaganda and to fight misinformation.
So the government's main argument is to put all of this into a global context. The message coming from the Prime Minister's office is essentially, hey, this isn't just an India problem. They're arguing that global events and tensions in West Asia are creating similar problems for the whole world, but that India is well prepared to handle it.
And that brings us right back to where we started. You've got this official story of stability and careful strategic management, and at the same time, you have these widespread public reports of shortages, high prices, and struggle. So it leaves us with one last, really crucial question to think about. When official statements and public experience are so different, how do we ever find